is definitely to hit 400 next year.
Sorry. I I was taking a drink and yeah, I'm gonna spit that up. Oh my gosh. Woo, that's a lot of miles. It's Golden Hour Adventure Time, featuring everyday people doing extraordinary things. From the peaks of victory to the valleys of defeat, these are their stories. Now, from the back of the pack, your hosts, Justin and Robbie. Welcome to Golden Hour Adventures. Today we have an incredible guest. I can't wait for you to hear her story. She's an insane, badass ultra runner, first off. And then just like her story in general is just so cool. You don't need any introduction. Lindsay Walter, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, Lindsay's a Brooks athlete like myself. Were you at Los Angeles last year?
No, the Chicago was my first Hypes Fest.
Okay. Because I followed you on social media. We've been following each other for a while, seeing all the incredible things you're doing. And I'm like, man, I got to get her on the podcast. And then just like, you know how social media it is. It'll feed you people that you want to see, and then they disappear from your life for 6 months. And you're like, wait, I forgot about that person. Let me go back to them. And then once we connected at Hype Fest this last year, I was like, oh yeah, we definitely got to get you on the podcast. I can't even name the number of things that you've done. So I'm so excited to have you on.
Thank you.
You most recently, and I'm sure you've done, 4 or 5 ultras in between this, but your big notable recent run is 6 Days in the Dome, correct?
Yes.
And for the listeners that have zero idea, somewhat like myself, can you explain what 6 Days in the Dome is and where it's at, like what you suffered through while you ran that?
Yes, the 6 Days in the Dome. It's at the Pettit National Ice Center in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And it was the second year that I did it for 6 days in June, or 144 hours. Do you want to think at it like that?
Gosh, I can't even fathom. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just such a I need to nail down my nutrition for hour to hour. Like, I have no idea what I would do for 144 hours.
Yeah, it was honestly incredible and I loved it. So you're on this indoor track and inside is like a speed skating rink. So it hovers like just below 50 degrees and it has the AC like blowing on you. So it definitely is cold and it's not like your kind of rubbery usual track. It's actually like a lot harder. So definitely wearing like a cushioned shoe just because it's a lot. Every 6 hours, you change directions. And then there's a sleep room upstairs. You can go like bring a cot, sleeping bag, whatever you need. And you can just sleep whenever you want and take breaks. Some people actually left and like slept in hotels and then would come back to the ring. You have like a table you set up along the track that kind of is your aid station. So whatever you want there, if you want to put a chair, all the food, anything that you need. They also have a main aid station where they did hot meals every 6 hours when you would change directions. Otherwise, the aid station just stocked with everything that you need. You get your timing chip and you basically just have like the 6 days to do as many miles as you can.
That's so wild.
And it's wild. Yeah, you go through like a lot. I will say the night portion, just because they turn the music off at 10 p.m. and then it's just like dead silent. And so this past year, I brought my headphones because the first year I did not have any headphones or music or anything. So just kind of learning from experience. It's really awesome though, just because there's people like all over the world that came to it. So that was a really cool opportunity. You kind of get to meet and talk to really cool people. It just is such a test of like mental like willpower to keep going, because there's a lot that just arises, of course, like the physical challenges with it, but also like the mental side of it, just to will yourself to keep going. Some people's personalities can be a lot, and so yeah, it's just a lot.
I can imagine for 144 hours, the personalities, they're really going to come to light.
Yeah, especially when you're sleep deprived, I feel like it brings out such a different side of people, intentional or not intentional. But I think that also was hard too. It was just, yeah, that.
Okay, so there's 6 days in the Dome, the 144 hours. There's other races that take place at the same time, right?
Yeah, so that's one thing that I actually really enjoyed. So this past year, they also had a 10-day race, but then also throughout the 6 days, there's many people who are doing a 72, 48, 24 hour. and you could start that on any day that you wanted. So you always had new people coming into the track, which I really enjoyed because that just gave you some like new energy and like new excitement. So many crews and just people coming in and out. But yeah, so there's a lot of, but it doesn't really feel like there's that many people just because people are taking breaks like so differently. And you're just like mindful of like, if you're running and moving along, like staying in lane 1, otherwise, you're out on lane 2 and 3. But yeah, there's a lot of people coming in and out, which I enjoyed.
When new races join, everybody's like, fresh meat.
Why is that person running so
that's funny.
fast?
Who is that? Who is that?
There.
Now, so do you get a buckle, or like what's the, I mean, obviously you're competing against yourself, and that's typically what the timed events are. It's a competition against yourself, but if you hit a certain mileage, do you get something per mileage, or?
If you hit 100 miles, you get a belt buckle.
Okay.
If you do like 300 miles, you still get 1 belt buckle. They did give you like some cool swag, like a water bottle, a bag, a hat, just some other cool stuff, a shirt. But yeah, it's a belt buckle.
Yeah, I feel like you did 100 miles, you earned a belt buckle.
Yeah.
I've heard of races where they like timed races where they don't give belt buckles. I'm like, what? Like, if I'm out there for 72 hours and I run, X amount of miles over 100, I feel like you deserve a belt buckle.
Yeah.
I think you should get one for every 100 miles.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Could you imagine having 3 of them? Be like,
and I don't remember if you said it or not, but how many miles did you actually run?
338.
38. Okay, I said 328. I was close.
Yeah.
I stalked you a little bit. So you said you did it the year prior too, or you've done it before. Did you beat your overall mileage?
Yes, I did 324 the first year.
Oh wow. Okay. Cool. Man, 338 miles. That's a wild. Okay, I got to know, hallucinations. Does that happen when you're out there? Because there's, normally I hallucinate it like there's logs or sticks or something like that, where you don't have that in a gym, basically. So what are you hallucinating? People's gear and other people, or?
So I'm actually, out of all the ultras I've done, I've only hallucinated twice, but never during 6 days. I think it's because you are like actually getting like to sleep if you need it. And it's just so different. So I never had any like hallucinations or anything during that race.
Man, that's boring.
I don't have a cool.
Well, what were your hallucinations in other races? I'm intrigued by that as well.
Yeah, so it's 2 times. Okay, so the first time it happened, of course, like middle of the night at some point. I was thinking I was seeing like King Triton from The Little Mermaid during like Halloween, right? Halloween weekend. I don't know if that has something to do with it. I don't know, but it was King Triton was the first race, and then this past March, I was doing 100 again, middle of the night at some point. It had this hallucination that I was seeing these like big llamas in the distance. I don't know where like llamas came from, but like it was a tree, not llamas, but like, yeah, these like big scary llamas.
What's the Disney movie with the llama? I can't think of the name of it. My listeners are just going to be like, they're screaming it out right now while they're on their ride. I can't think of the name of it, but that's funny because you just hallucinate Disney movie characters. So
Yeah, I guess so.
it'll come to me at probably 3:00 this morning. I'll wake up and be like, I'll yell it. And that's the name of it.
It's the Emperor's New Groove.
Emperor's New Groove. Yeah, there it is. So you got Little Mermaid and Emperor's New Groove. Next time you're going to see Rafiki from Lion King running around.
At least there's nothing to scare you.
Yeah, well, that's true. I don't know if I see Rafiki running around in the middle of the woods. I'm going to be pretty terrified.
Yeah.
So are you going for 10 days this time, or are you going back to the 6 day?
I think definitely 6 days. I think I just want to like better my 6 day. Yeah, I went through a lot of like harder like physical stuff this like past year. And so I guess I know that I'm disappointed in 338 because I know I'm like very much so proud of that. I beat my mileage from the year before, but I would just love to do 6 days again and just, improve my mileage.
Walk us through, for someone like 99% of the people listening to this podcast that have never run something that extreme or that long, kind of walk us through like what your strategy is. Like how many miles do you run at a stint? What's your sleep strategy, your nutrition? I mean, you don't have to spill all your secrets, but
yeah,
maybe helping somebody out that might be on the brink of signing up for something like that.
Yeah, I would say definitely always go for it. Like if you just have like the littlest bit of like oh, that seems kind of fun. Just sign up and go for it because once you're signed up and like committed to it, that's like gonna help keep you super motivated. I think for me, just like going in a goal that like was for me, it's not like I'm gonna be so and so or anything like that, but having a goal that like means a lot to me just because like I'm the one, doing the miles and stuff like that. So to me, like having my own personal goal, and I think honestly, just kind of like staying so diligent and like so disciplined with like when I was gonna take a sleep break and like after I did that, like never snoozing my alarm and just like, kind of winning like those small little battles really helped me a lot throughout the race. Just, being like, okay, I'm proud of myself. Like I'm really tired, but like it's not time for my sleep break. So I'm not gonna take a sleep break. And so just like doing stuff like that. And so yeah, I would say that I went with like longer sleep breaks this year, less frequently, just because you go up to the room upstairs, it's like warm, and then you come back down to the track and like everything just hurts and it's cold and it takes a long up and moving again. And I learned that the year before, like not wasting time with like shorter breaks. Just that's like initially what my plan was. And then I was like, no, this is like way harder. I need to do less breaks, but then just for longer periods of time. And so I did that. And that
What
really
did
like
your sleep break look like? What are we talking? 3, 4 hours, or are we even
yeah,
longer than that?
and I didn't want to go until like the second night. So made it through the whole first night running, ran through the day, and it was the second night that I took my first break. And what kind of comes with the race is unfortunately when it was like my time to get that sleep break, I was so excited. I was so tired, but you're in this like room, kind of like conference type room. Everyone has like their cots in there. Immediately I laid down. The person next to me laid down about 2 minutes later and just was snoring so loud.
Oh no.
And I had like earplugs in and not sleep. And I was like, oh my gosh, no. And so I just got up. I gave myself, I was like, if I don't fall asleep within like 10 minutes, I'm not just going to lay here and waste time. So like my sleep was like terrible during that race just because it was just hard. And so after that, I was like, I did try to time out my sleep breaks when I knew like certain people weren't sleeping just because that I needed that sleep. So kind of altered that a little bit. I will say having the turnaround on the track helped a lot too, just because I would say like, okay, like keep going until it's like lunchtime, then it's a turnaround, then you can get your lunch, sit outside for like 20 minutes, and it felt good just to get some fresh air and sunshine, have my meal. And I just did like a break like that to kind of push myself to keep like going. I think nutrition as well, just taking in like solid food. I ate like all the meals that they had and like whatever I felt like I needed. I did a really great job with that just because I felt like very fueled throughout. I felt very hydrated throughout, or like when I'm walking, I would say, okay, I'm gonna grab like my water bottle, and if I'm walking, I'm gonna be like taking, drinking water as I'm, doing like a walking lap and just kind of stuff like that. Just different kind of strategies that I had learned just the year before, as well. So I just felt like a lot more prepared. But yeah, just making sure I was eating a ton of food. If I was hungry for something, like eating it, just whatever I was like craving.
That's awesome. That sounds like, I mean, you're extremely experienced in that. So you kind of dial it in. It seems like probably this next year, you have even more experience and you'll be able.
Thank you.
So Robbie and I have both run hundreds, and that's where our distance has stopped, so far. We're both gonna peak at past that this year. But what does your body go through? So I know in 100, for me specifically, I'm not really hungry for a couple days. I'm, obviously kind of tired. The body's just kind of struggling a little bit, and then it hits you all at once where you're starving and you need to take in like every calorie that you can possibly lay your eyes on, and then you're sleeping a ton and everything starts to reset after about a week and a half, 2 weeks, that type thing. Like, what does your body go through after doing 6 days, 338 miles, and just like, the irregular sleep patterns and running through the night, eating crazy ultra food and that type of stuff?
Yeah, definitely like, initially like right after, even for like the first day, I was like not really hungry, but I knew I needed to be like eating food. So I was like forcing myself to eat. And then I would say within like 2 days, I was like, man, I'm so hungry. I just was
Yeah.
eating nonstop, just everything. I actually went to like Spain right away and just eating tons of food. I tried to get just like, on to like a normal sleep schedule. So just as soon as I landed, I was like, hey, it's the day, so it's not time to sleep yet. But like once I got there, I was like, hey, sleeping like when I needed to. The first night or two, not sleeping great. But then after that, I was sleeping for probably like 10, 12 hours. And that's so much sleep for me. Like I've never slept like that. But I think too, just like giving my body like what it needed. I also think like moving around, not like running, but just going on like an active recovery walk and just kind of like stay moving and like forcing myself to stretch as well really helped a lot. Because I think if you would just do nothing, just like getting really stiff and then you're so sore. But I really did like a lot of yoga, a lot of like walking and stretching, and just like tried to kind of keep my body like loose. And I think that also helped a lot too, just like with the recovery of it. I didn't force myself to run at all until I like wanted to run. But yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. Robbie, you gonna ask your question, your famous question?
The famous question?
The famous one.
Yeah, the famous one.
Well, the one you always ask me.
Yeah. I was like, what question? And then, then I remembered. So, how many times have you done 6 days in the dome? Two. So I want to go back to, was it last year?
Yeah, I did it this past June and in 2023.
Okay, in 2023, after you finished, what did you learn about yourself?
That my willpower is just like so much stronger than I ever knew possible. Like I always knew like mental toughness and willpower was like such a strength of mine, but like being able to like complete a race like that and just like finish the 6 days healthy, and like never having quit on myself, I was like, wow, like I have just so much potential if I just like continue to believe and like push myself. But yeah.
So you learned that about yourself in 2023.
Yes.
Then what did you learn about yourself in 2024?
So the same answer because I think like that race was, I mean, my training, I felt just so prepared and so ready for it. But I think like right from the jump, I had like an upset stomach and I threw up and I had like a pressure rash like on my legs. And I just physically, like, I just went through so much like right on day 1 and 2 where it would have been like really easy to quit, and I was like, no, like I'm not quitting, like I'm finishing out this 6 days, and then just to keep pushing myself to like keep going even though like I was not like feeling my best, and I just had a really hard time like regulating like my body temperature. Like it was like cold inside there, but I was like just sweating and so hot, but I wasn't running fast enough that like I should be like sweating and hot like that. And so like there was just something that, it was just, if for whatever reason, was having a hard, I went through several like stretches of just like not my best, but then I just like kept going. So again, just like not quitting, I would say it was, yeah, kind of the same lesson.
I like it. So going into next year, if you do it, what's your goal and what would you like to see different?
So my goal is definitely to hit 400 next year.
Wow.
I'm sorry. I was taking a drink and yeah, I'm gonna spit that up. Oh my gosh. Woo, that's a lot of miles.
Fine. Yeah, so my goal is 400 for next year, and I think just yeah, just like to continue to like believe in myself and just have like a really good build up. I feel confident in like my strategy of like when I'm taking sleep breaks and like how I want to keep moving along the track and stuff like that. And like I know I can do it. I know that like it's gonna be hard. I know what to expect with like the temperatures and like the feel of the track and like all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm gonna shoot for 400 next year.
It's amazing.
That's incredible. Is there a course record for that or?
Yeah, so Joe Fiji's has 578.
Whoa.
Which, yeah, crazy.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Is there a female PR?
Yes. I mean, yeah, there is. I guess I don't know it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You're
But
going after the 578.
no, I'll be.
My
Well,
my next. Sorry, I was gonna lost my train of thought, but I'll get back to it. So you went 300 both times, going for 400 next year. What do you think is left? I know you haven't hit the 400 mark yet, but what do you see in your future, and what do you think is left to find what you're capable of?
Honestly, I look forward to finding that out. I think just especially from running 6 days and just, all the races and just kind of everything, I think that like if you're willing to just like work hard and like put in the work and like believe in yourself, that like you have like your potential is limitless. And I really do believe that. So I'm excited to see what I can do in 6 days again. And then, yeah, maybe go after 100-mile PR and just like that's like one of my favorite things about running. I just feel like there's always potential to just get better at something, whether it's like I want to do more miles or I want to get faster and run this time. That's like one of my favorite things about running is that you can just pick a goal that means so much to you and just like work hard to achieve that. So I think really anything is possible.
What what keeps you motivated to keep going after these big goals?
I think it just makes me like so excited. I just like love setting a goal like for myself. That just makes me excited, whether it's, like a fast marathon or 100 mile or 6 days, just like whatever it is. I just think something that means so much to me. And that's like what gets me excited and motivated to like wake up every day to do that. And I think I'm just concerned about like myself. Like I'm competing and like racing against myself and not really worried about like what other people are doing. And then, yeah, I think that really helps to keep me like grounded and motivated.
We've been focusing on 6 days in the dome, but you've run, I wouldn't say a handful because there's more hundreds than you've run fingers on my hand. So, how many hundreds have you run?
11.
11. That's insane. That's awesome. What's been your favorite race?
I have to say my first 100-miler, I think you'll just never forget your first 100-miler. It was just such an incredible feeling to jump, honestly, from like the marathon to me being like, yeah, I'm gonna like run my like PR in Boston, and then, the pandemic happens and that cancels. And that's like how I got into ultras. Just kind of jumped into the 100-miler. And I think just everything, like we had like a tornado in the distance, we had like downpours and just like this crazy weather. And I think just like never having like quit and just like finished that out in like 24 hours, I was just like so proud of myself. I was like, I can't believe I ran 100 miles. Like it like just didn't feel real. And I think, yeah, that's just like been my favorite because it was my first belt buckle and it was just so exciting. And yeah, just such a great feeling.
I tell people all the time that haven't run 100 yet, they may have done like 50 miles, 100K maybe, but I tell them that there's something very special about getting your first 100-mile buckle or getting a 100-mile buckle in general because, yeah, you put in a lot of work for a marathon. I'm not discrediting that. You put in a lot of work for 50, 100K. I'm not discrediting that either. But there's just something different about running 100 miles
Yeah.
and you crossing that finish line and getting handed a belt buckle. It's can't explain it. Maybe you can. I don't know. Robbie, we've had this conversation before.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Yeah,
like
real. Like you're like a marathon, you're like, oh, okay, like again, not just carting that 22 miles, like that's hard, that's a lot. But like when you say like, oh, I ran 100 miles, like it just even saying that out loud, like it just doesn't do that. And so, yeah.
yeah, it's insane. I resonate with the feeling that you're having on your first one. It's just you just work so hard for it and then you get it and it's an incredible feeling. Well, we didn't really talk about like where you mentioned it a little bit about in COVID you jumped into that, but you had to train to get up to that marathon and that Boston qualifier and then eventually jump to the marathon. And I also want to say that Robbie jumped from you didn't even do a marathon. You went straight from half marathon to 100 miles. Is that what it was, Robbie?
I went actually I did 100K do
Oh,
100
okay.
miles,
Sorry.
but I've
I
never
thought,
ran a marathon. Or
yeah,
road
that's right. You
marathon,
never ran a marathon.
or a half.
Oh, there you go. I'll get him one of these days. But anyway, we never talked about your journey. Like, how did you get into running? Like, where did this all start? How long have you been running? Walk us through it.
I was actually never a runner. I played college basketball.
She just ran 338 miles, but she never was a runner.
Yeah, just the thing I enjoyed, like the mile and P. I was like, oh man, this is so far. But yeah, so college basketball was like my life, everything. And then there was Grandma's Marathon in Duluth, Minnesota, where I went to college. My senior year, I was like, I want to run a marathon. I want to cross it off my bucket list. And I honestly thought it was going to be like one and done. I just remember like getting to Grandma's Marathon. We had postseason after basketball, so that gave me about a month to train for it. So I didn't really train, but there was just like something about like the running. I didn't drink any water. I wasn't during a marathon, but I loved it. I just felt so like, I think from like playing team sports my whole life, and then all of a sudden like running, I was like, no, I'm the one that just ran like those 26.2 miles, and there was just something so empowering about that. I loved the running community. I just felt so like accepted and embraced. Everyone, like looks and trains like so differently, but we all had this like one goal of, getting to the finish line. And so that's something I really enjoyed about the running community. And I knew after I crossed that finish line and then my basketball days were done with, like, I knew I was going to take up marathon running. I knew nothing about it. So it was just so exciting, like this whole new adventure for me. And so I just started running marathons all over the country and I just loved it. I loved the training. I loved like setting a goal for myself and just like working hard every day to achieve that. I loved like the tangible side of that. Again, just from team sports, all of a sudden having something running where you're like, okay, like my goal is to run 15 miles today. Like, let's run 15. And I just loved being able to like check that off and just kind of do all of that. I think, very much at this time, like, I mean, diagnosed with alopecia at 2 years old. So I lost my hair at 2. Really struggled with my alopecia, like all growing up in high school, in college, like even after college for a couple of years, I didn't talk about my alopecia. Not many people knew about it. It was still something that I was just, yeah, having a really hard time with. But the more I was running, the more I was just gaining confidence in myself. And there was just something that really shifted in me, like through running. I think, again, just like the empowerment and just like how you're the one like doing that really just carried over like into my personal feelings just about like my alopecia and this like reality that I never wanted to face for basically like my whole life. And then yeah, it was like through marathons and I eventually like stopped wearing my wig. Yeah, that's how I got into that. And I think when I first started running, it was really fun for me and it was exciting and I just wanted to keep improving, getting better. And like my time started getting faster and I just was becoming such a better runner, like learning so much, like, oh, like how do you train for a marathon? Like, oh, you need to do like tempo runs and all that. But learning so much and I just got like better over time, faster. And then yeah, when the pandemic hit and they canceled Boston, I was like, okay, like I need to find something to do. And then, yeah, found like 100 milers down in South Carolina just because that was so much more open than North Carolina. And so I signed up for my first 100, and that's how I got an ultra.
That's so cool. So
Marathons,
awesome.
marathons, 100 miler.
Did you
Yeah.
ever go to Boston? Did you ever go back?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. What you talked about, you mentioned a little bit with your journey with alopecia, and in growing confidence in yourself, but you've turned that into an outreach for others. You've written books, you've written articles for major magazines. Talk about your outreach programs that you are participating in.
Yeah, so I started a pen pal program called Lindsay's Little Pals for kids and teens with alopecia. I pen pals all over the country and our world, which honestly, like that, out of all my buckles and medals, like those letters that I get just mean more than like anything could. I just think I struggled so much growing up and like social media wasn't a thing, so I never knew anyone or even saw anyone like who had alopecia. And to me, that was so hard. Like, had I just saw someone like in a magazine or like a news article who looks like me, I think that just would have helped me so much to not feel so isolated and alone. But then now to get to like be that person for someone else and to get to say, like, no, like, I understand what you're going through. Like, I've lived that, people have been mean to me. I've worn wigs, I've like struggled, but then to see like everything that alopecia has also taught me and who it's like made me as a person. And I think just getting to be like that mentor and friend and advocate has been just so incredible. Just to give back in a way and just to be that person for someone else. So that's Lindsay's Little Pals. It has grown so much and it's awesome. I love it. I love writing letters. I'm super old school like that. I've always liked writing letters and getting mail and all of that. So that's just honestly how it started. People just shared it. Again, I think that can also be one of the positives of social media is just like how much, people are like, oh, like I know someone in my community or in my school and like their son or daughter has alopecia and just through word of mouth and people just continuing to share it. So that's been awesome. And I've also just had a lot of really incredible opportunities to kind of write and share my story or just like be interviewed in various ways just to bring awareness and education to alopecia. And I think like it's like such a responsibility, but it's just one that I am just so grateful for, just to get to kind of bring that awareness into why, like when you see someone who doesn't have hair, a lot of times people assume that it's something else. And I think just to bring light and awareness to it is so important. I just feel lucky that I get to do it. I know there's a lot of people who kind of look up to me, and so just getting to be that voice is just it's really special.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I read your article recently in Ultra Running Magazine,
Yeah.
and then you have an article or an entire chapter in Chicken Soup for the Soul, right?
Yes. Yep.
That's incredible. That's awesome. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I just thank you.
Oh, sorry. I thought that was something else. How has ultra running or running in general, and you said that through running you felt more confident, but how has your outreaches helped through running? I guess I'm trying to ask a question. I don't know how to ask it, to be honest with you, but how has the outlet of running helped you reach other people?
That's a good question.
That doesn't happen very often, I'll be honest.
I think a couple of things kind of combine with that. I think, the more I'm running, obviously, like, I do look different than the majority of people just not having hair. And I think, that leads to, it can go like one or two ways. I think it has been really great as far as like, people will come and approach me and I can say like, no, like I actually have alopecia and something like that. Or, someone like, I know someone who has alopecia, I like have read or saw your story. And so it's just been really cool to like connect with people as well. And I think, yeah, so it has been really great just because it is something that it has. Well, I think it also something that I'm like, okay, like I know people are staring at me. And so I think it also is something that I'm like, okay, like I'm going to choose to be really positive and I'm going to like choose to work hard because I know people are looking at me. So why not I, be someone that is like setting a good example. So that's always something that like I try to do and just like carry myself in like a very positive way. I think so too. Like, sometimes people are unfortunately like not that nice to me. Or just like assume something like because like I don't have hair. So I think like that also can be like really hard too. But again, I think sometimes people like they can be super open as far as wanting to like learn and be educated on alopecia. But I also think too, like sometimes it can be kind of hard just because I'm like, I just want to show up at a race. I just want to run this race. Like I don't want someone to ask me if I'm sick or like tell me that I'm so brave to like
Yeah.
fight in and just stuff like that. I'm like, no, I just want to run. I don't want to talk, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I got you. I lost my train of thought.
Your turn.
I'm sorry. I have allergies and I'm drinking tea. My throat is doing its thing. We're there. Through your 11 100s and your 2 6 days in the dome, there has to be an embarrassing story that you have. I dropped this question. I didn't prepare. And we've heard it all. I mean, being an ultra runner, I mean, come on, we've heard it all. There's got to be something that's great out there. As you just told your entire life story, now we're going to ask you an embarrassing story from one of your runs.
But like I don't have an embarrassing story. Like nothing has ever happened to me that's like been embarrassing.
Oh my gosh.
You might
I
be
feel
the
like
first.
every day I wake up, something embarrassing happens.
I guess just nothing like that has ever happened to me. I mean, I've tripped on the trail, but I don't know if that's like necessarily embarrassing. I'm gonna say no.
Hey, there's got to be,
Yeah.
there's a first time. So,
But something if it like ever comes to me or like if it does happen to me in the future, I'll be sure to like email back and let you know.
yeah, I like that. I like that. Well, 2 questions we always ask our guests, and I know one of the answers tremendously is going to be, what kind of gear do you wear?
Yeah, so Brooks have been my go-to shoes. Honestly, trails, I enjoy the Brooks Ghost for the trails. If they're not super technical, so I ran in the Brooks Ghost. When I did 6 days in the dome, I did the Ghost Max. Didn't change out my shoes once. Wore the same
Wow.
shoes for 6 days. I had
Did you trash them after that? Were they completely gone?
just because for like memories, but I mean, I
Oh,
can't.
okay, yeah.
But yeah, definitely. But yeah, I think, yeah, shoes have been good for me. I've never had feet problems or injuries or anything like that. I credit a lot of that to just wearing the right kind of shoes, to sizing up and doing all of that. Yeah, Brooks. Um,
What about pack, headlamp, that type stuff?
Yeah, so honestly, the Brooks headlamp that they gave us in the pack maybe like 2 years ago, is the one that like I've always used. It works well for me. I asked like what kind of details there were with it, and like they weren't even sure like where they manufactured it from.
Aaron said the same thing. He's like, this is a fantastic headlamp. And I'm like, where do
Yes,
we find this thing?
I asked them about it. I was like, oh my gosh, like where did these come from? Because I was asked to write an article about just like all my ultra gear, and I was like, I feel silly writing like, oh, Brooks gave you this for free, but like they did information about it either. So I was like, oh gosh. But yeah, just this like Brooks headlamp that they gave me. That's what worked. Yeah, and then I've just always done like Tailwind has worked really well for me. And so I do that. And then depending on it, I usually just do a handheld, or if it's like a loop course, yeah, just come back to my aid station all the time. But I would say those are like my go-to just kind of gear.
You run hundreds with a handheld?
Yes, I do.
Wow, you're brave.
I've tried not, I've done it once. I didn't really like it, so I feel like handheld is kind of
Okay, I like it. I'm not brave enough to do
yeah.
handheld. And I'm usually kind of further in the back, so I have my poles and like a poles with a handheld and like trying to take a drink and do all that. Yeah,
I will
I
say
don't
I've
know.
kind of too to put stuff like if I need like a snack later, I will just kind of like shove it down my shirt. And I'm like, oh, I can have this like snack later just to hold stuff because I feel like women's clothes obviously doesn't really come with many pockets or things like that. So that's the one thing if you do only have a handheld. But yeah, I've always done that, and it's just it's worked fine. Obviously, if I was doing like a point, obviously I wouldn't do that. But I think just I am coming by the aid station. Yeah, handheld has always worked for me.
Yeah, waist belt could help too. I've recently started running with a waist belt and I really like it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, they're they're kind of like skin tight, or they kind of
Yeah.
built to fit you, and then you can just shove all kinds of cool stuff in there. I don't know. Robbie showed them to me, and so I've been running with it all year this year, and I really like it.
Game changer for me.
They definitely are game changers. Somebody from your network who, has, Golden Hour Adventures is not necessarily a running podcast. Well, we are, but we're not. We have all kinds of adventurers on there. So who's someone from your network that would be, really cool to have on the podcast?
That's a really good question. I feel like there's people.
I did prep this question.
No, that is a good question. Um, I feel like if you could get Joe Fiji's on the podcast to talk about 6 days in the dome when he ran like over 560 miles, I feel like that would be a really great person. Man, I guess yeah, he's the name that comes to me like right away. Yeah, probably Joe Fiji's.
Awesome. Well, Lindsay, thank you so much for coming on. We'll give you a couple minutes to shout out how people can reach you. If somebody wants to join the Pen Pal, how can they get a hold of that? Where can people find you on social media? Anyone you want to thank for whatever reason, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Well, first, thank you guys so much for having me. Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at LindsayHannah3. All my pen pal information is on there as well. And my email, it's very easy to get a hold of me. It's very easy to find me if you just kind of Google me, like you find stuff. Yeah, I think too, one thing I do just want to like shout out and just give well wishes for is everyone in, the Carolinas who's really affected by the hurricane. I think back to when I did my first 100, which was down in Greenville, through upstate ultra. We're in the sweat right now. But their and run community has just been absolutely destroyed by the hurricane this like past weekend. And I think just like thinking of them and everyone who's just been really affected by that, just because it's like the trail and running community, I've done just a lot of really great races like down there. And so just like thinking of them, just wishing them well and safety. But yeah, I guess that's it. Of
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
course.
If you like Lindsay's podcast, please share it around. Leave us a comment on the Instagram post. Leave us a review on any platform you listen to. It helps us get her podcast out. It helps us get all the other podcasts out. Do us a solid. Leave us a review. Leave us a comment. Follow Lindsay on Instagram, and we'll see you on the trails.